I made $7.5 million, from a small shop to a big brand. But my parents chose my brother as CEO. The words echoed in my mind like a haunting refrain, each syllable heavy with the weight of years spent building something from nothing, only to have it snatched away by forces beyond my control. It wasn't supposed to be this way. Not after everything I had sacrificed. It all began on a humid summer morning in our tiny hometown, nestled between rolling hills and endless fields of golden wheat. The air smelled of freshly baked bread wafting through the open windows of our family's modest bakery, a place that was as much a part of me as my own heartbeat. Mama rolled out dough with practiced ease while Papa manned the ovens, his hands perpetually dusted with flour. And there I was, perched on a stool at the counter, watching them work their magic, dreaming of one day creating something just as extraordinary. But dreams don't come easy when you're the daughter of immigrant parents who believe success is reserved for sons. My brother Arjun was the golden child, the one destined for greatness. He was sharp-tongued and charming, always quick with a witty remark or an impromptu football match in the backyard. Everyone loved him, the teachers, the neighbors, even strangers he met once. Meanwhile, I was quiet and observant, content to linger in the background, absorbing every detail around me. I remember the first time I realized how different our paths would be. I must have been 10, maybe 11. We were sitting at the kitchen table after dinner, and Mama asked us what we wanted to do when we grew up. Without hesitation, Arjun declared he'd become a businessman, a CEO no less, and everyone laughed indulgently, as if his ambition were already a foregone conclusion. When it was my turn, I hesitated, unsure how to articulate the vague but powerful longing inside me. I want to make things, I finally said. Beautiful things people will love. Mama smiled faintly, patting my hand. That's nice, Beta, she said. But maybe you should think about something more practical. Practical meant marrying well, raising children, and supporting my husband's career. That was the script written for me long before I could read. Still, I couldn't let go of my dream. Over the years, I poured myself into learning every aspect of the bakery business. While Arjun played cricket with his friends or chased girls during high school, I stayed behind the counter, experimenting with recipes, perfecting techniques, and studying customer preferences. By the time I graduated college, I knew more about baking than most professional chefs twice my age. Yet no matter how hard I worked, my efforts seemed invisible to my parents. They saw only Arjun's potential, never mine. After graduation, I decided to take matters into my own hands. With savings scraped together from odd jobs and birthday gifts, I rented a small storefront downtown and opened my very first shop, Sweet Beginnings. It was cramped and unassuming, barely large enough to fit 3 tables and a display case. But it was mine, a tangible manifestation of everything I'd ever hoped for. I painted the walls myself, hung fairy lights above the counter, and filled the space with the intoxicating aroma of vanilla and cinnamon. On opening day, I stood behind the register, heart pounding, praying someone would walk through the door. And they did. Slowly at first, then steadily, until lines stretched out onto the street. Word spread quickly about the little bakery where every treat tasted like home. Customers raved about my signature almond croissants, layered so delicately they practically melted on your tongue. Local food bloggers wrote glowing reviews, calling me the hidden gem of the town. Business boomed, and within months, I expanded to a second location. Success didn't come without its challenges. There were sleepless nights spent troubleshooting supply chain issues, countless hours hunched over spreadsheets trying to balance budgets, and moments of sheer panic when orders overwhelmed capacity. But through it all, I refused to give up. Every obstacle became another opportunity to prove myself, not just to others, but to the voice inside my head that whispered I wasn't good enough. By the 5th year, Sweet Beginnings had grown into a regional sensation. We operated 5 stores across 2 states, employed over 50 people, and generated revenue in the millions. Magazines featured me on their covers, labeling me a self-made entrepreneur and trailblazer. Investors clamored to partner with me, eager to help scale the brand nationwide. And yet, despite my accomplishments, my parents remained unmoved. "You've done well," Baba said one evening during one of our rare family dinners. His tone was neutral, almost clinical, as though discussing someone else's achievements rather than those of his own flesh and blood. "But now it's time to think about the future. You can't handle this alone forever." I blinked, stunned. "What do you mean? I've built this company from scratch. Why wouldn't I continue running it? He exchanged a glance with Mama, who looked uncomfortable but resolute. Running a business of this size requires experience, she explained gently. Someone who understands leadership and strategy. Someone like Arjun. My stomach dropped. For a moment, I thought I'd misheard her. Surely, they weren't suggesting what I thought they were. Arjun. I repeated incredulously. He doesn't know anything about baking, or running a business. He's smart, Baba interjected firmly. And he has a degree in business administration. He'll figure it out. But I've been doing this for years. I protested, my voice rising. I know every inch of this company, every recipe, every employee, every customer. How can you possibly think he'd be better suited for this role? It's not about being better, Mama said softly. It's about what's expected. People trust men in positions of authority. They'll listen to him. Her words hit me like a slap. All these years, I'd convinced myself that hard work and determination would eventually earn their respect. But deep down, I'd known the truth. They'd never see me as equal to my brother. In their eyes, I was still just a girl playing at entrepreneurship, destined to fail unless guided by a man's steady hand. For weeks afterward, I wrestled with anger, frustration, and a profound sense of betrayal. Part of me wanted to fight back, to refuse to step aside and let them impose their will on my life's work. But another part, the part that still craved their approval, wondered if maybe they were right. Maybe I was too emotional, too scattered, too inexperienced to lead a multimillion-dollar enterprise. Maybe Arjun really could take the company to heights I couldn't imagine. Reluctantly, I agreed to meet with him. Sitting across from him in a sleek conference room overlooking the city skyline, I felt a strange mixture of resentment and curiosity. Gone was the carefree boy I'd grown up with. In his place sat a polished young man in a tailored suit, exuding confidence and charm. He spoke eloquently about his vision for the company, throwing around buzzwords like brand synergy and market penetration. At times, I found myself nodding along, impressed by his ideas. Other times, I bristled at his condescending remarks about my lack of formal education or strategic foresight. When the meeting ended, I walked out feeling conflicted. Could I truly entrust my life's work to someone who hadn't shared in its struggles? Who hadn't burned midnight oil perfecting recipes or cried over botched shipments? Who hadn't lived and breathed this company the way I had? Over the next few months, I tried to distance myself, focusing instead on mentoring new employees and developing innovative products. But it was impossible to ignore the changes sweeping through the organization. Arjun implemented sweeping reforms, restructuring departments, renegotiating contracts, and launching aggressive marketing campaigns. Some of his decisions paid off spectacularly, propelling the company toward unprecedented growth. Others left long-time staff members disillusioned and customers alienated. Meanwhile, tensions simmered beneath the surface of our relationship. Arjun dismissed my input, treating me like an outdated relic of the company's past rather than a vital contributor to its present. Colleagues tiptoed around us, sensing the brewing storm. Even our parents seemed uneasy, torn between pride in their son's accomplishments and guilt over sidelining their daughter. One particularly grueling day, I found myself standing outside the original Sweet Beginnings location, staring through the glass window at the bustling activity inside. The sight filled me with a bittersweet nostalgia. This had been my sanctuary, my safe haven, the place where I dared to dream bigger than anyone thought possible. Now it felt foreign, transformed into something I barely recognized. As I turned to leave, a familiar figure approached, my childhood best friend Priya, who'd supported me through every triumph and setback. Her presence brought a flicker of comfort amidst the chaos swirling around me. "You look like you need a break," she said, linking her arm through mine. "Come on. Let's grab coffee and talk." We settled into a cozy cafe down the street, steam rising from our mugs as silence stretched between us. Finally, Priya broke it. "You've been carrying this burden alone for too long," she said softly. "It's okay to admit you're hurt. It's okay to feel angry." Tears welled in my eyes, spilling over before I could stop them. For the first time in months, I allowed myself to release the emotions I'd kept bottled up: fear, frustration, grief, and yes, anger. Anger at my parents for doubting me, at Arjun for undermining me, and at myself for letting them. But as the storm passed, clarity emerged. I realized something crucial. this wasn't just about me anymore. It was about the dozens of employees who relied on Sweet Beginnings for their livelihoods, the loyal customers who trusted us to deliver quality and consistency, and the countless aspiring entrepreneurs, especially women, who looked to me as proof that success was attainable regardless of gender or circumstance. I couldn't abandon them. Not now. Not ever. With renewed resolve, I returned to the office, determined to reclaim my rightful place, not because I needed validation from my family, but because I owed it to everyone who believed in me. What happened next would change everything, for better or worse, but one thing was certain: I was ready to fight for what mattered most. The next morning, I walked into the office with a fire in my chest that hadn't burned this brightly in months. Gone was the hesitation, the self-doubt, the fear of confrontation. In their place stood clarity and purpose. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about proving to myself, to my family, and to the world that women could lead, innovate, and succeed without needing validation from anyone else. I called an emergency meeting with Arjun, bypassing his assistant and walking straight into his corner office. He looked up from his laptop, startled by my unannounced arrival. For once, he didn't have his usual smug grin or rehearsed charm. Instead, there was a flicker of unease in his eyes as I planted myself firmly across from him. "We need to talk," I said, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. "This isn't working." Arjun leaned back in his chair, feigning nonchalance. "What do you mean?" "The company's doing better than ever. Profits are up, new locations are opening." "That's not what I'm talking about," I interrupted, cutting through his polished rhetoric. "You've changed everything, the culture, the values, the people who made Sweet Beginnings what it is today. And for what? To make it bigger? To prove you're some kind of corporate genius." My words came out sharper than I intended, but I didn't care. For a moment, Arjun stared at me, his jaw tightening. Then he sighed, rubbing his temples. "Look, I get it. You built this company. You poured your heart into it. But let's be honest, you weren't prepared for this level of growth. You needed someone like me to take it to the next stage." "Needed you?" I shot back, incredulous. "Do you even realize how insulting that sounds? I've been running this business since before you knew what a P&L statement was. Every decision, every risk, every late night, it was all me. And now you waltz in here acting like you're saving the day while dismantling everything that made us special." Arjun opened his mouth to argue, but I held up a hand, silencing him. "Enough. I'm done letting you dismiss me like I don't matter. From now on, things are going to change. We're co-CEOs. Equal partners. No more shutting me out of meetings, no more ignoring my input, and no more pretending you know better than me." His expression shifted from irritation to surprise. Clearly, he hadn't expected me to stand up to him like this. After a long pause, he gave a reluctant nod. "Fine. Co-CEOs. But if we're doing this, you play by my rules." "No," I replied firmly. "We play by our rules. Or rather, the rules that got us here in the first place: integrity, passion, and respect, for our employees, our customers, and each other." Over the following weeks, tensions between us remained high, but something remarkable began to happen. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, Arjun started listening. At first, it was small gestures, a quick glance at me during strategy sessions, a hesitant acknowledgement of one of my ideas, but soon, those moments grew into genuine collaboration. Together, we found ways to merge his vision for expansion with my commitment to preserving the soul of the brand. It wasn't easy. There were still disagreements, heated arguments, and sleepless nights spent questioning whether this uneasy partnership would hold. But for the first time in years, I felt alive again, like I was truly leading, not just surviving. One evening, after a particularly grueling day of negotiations with suppliers, I found myself sitting alone in the original Sweet Beginnings shop. It had become my sanctuary, a reminder of where it all began. As I sipped on a cup of chai, Priya walked in, her face lighting up when she saw me. "How's it going?" she asked, pulling up a chair beside me. I hesitated, searching for the right words. "It's complicated. Arjun and I are finally starting to work together, but it's fragile. One wrong move, and everything could fall apart." Priya nodded thoughtfully. "That's understandable. But look how far you've come. You didn't give up, even when everyone, including your own family, tried to push you aside. That takes courage." Her words struck a chord deep within me. Courage. Was that what this was? Fighting for something I believed in, even when the odds were stacked against me. Before I could respond, the door chimed, and a familiar figure stepped inside. It was Mama. She looked smaller somehow, frilier, as though the weight of recent events had finally caught up with her. Her eyes met mine, filled with a mixture of guilt and sorrow. I hope I'm not interrupting, she said softly, glancing around the cozy space. I just wanted to see this place again. My heart clenched. Part of me wanted to lash out, to demand answers for why she'd chosen Arjun over me, why she doubted my abilities so completely. But instead, I gestured toward the seat across from me. Sit. She hesitated, then complied, folding her hands nervously in her lap. For several minutes, neither of us spoke. Finally, she broke the silence. I never meant to hurt you, she began, her voice trembling. When your father and I decided to bring Arjun in, it wasn't because we thought less of you. It's just, she paused, struggling to find the words. We grew up in a different world, Beta. A world where men were expected to lead, and women were expected to support. It's not fair, and it's not right. But it's all we've ever known. Her admission caught me off guard. I'd spent so many years blaming her, resenting her for failing to see my potential. Yet here she was, admitting her mistakes, exposing the cracks in the foundation of her beliefs. I'm proud of you, she continued, tears welling in her eyes. So proud. Watching you build this company from nothing, it's been the greatest gift of my life. I only wish I'd told you sooner. Emotions swirled within me, anger, sadness, relief, all colliding in a chaotic mess. But beneath it all was love. Deep, unshakable love for the woman who had raised me, flaws and all. I forgive you, I whispered, reaching across the table to take her hand. But promise me something. Promise me you'll stop doubting me. Stop doubting women like me. Because we're capable of so much more than anyone gives us credit for. She nodded, squeezing my hand tightly. I promise. As the days turned into weeks, something shifted, not just in my relationship with Arjun, but within the entire company. Employees noticed the change, commenting on how the workplace felt lighter, more inclusive. Customers returned, drawn not only by the products but by the renewed sense of authenticity and care that permeated every aspect of the business. And yet, despite these victories, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was still unfinished business. My parents' apology had been a step forward, but it didn't erase the years of doubt and dismissal. Arjun and I had forged a tentative truce, but trust was slow to rebuild. Most importantly, I realized that my journey wasn't just about reclaiming my role in the company, it was about redefining what leadership looked like for women everywhere. Late one night, as I sat in my office surrounded by papers and spreadsheets, an idea began to form. What if Sweet Beginnings could be more than just a bakery? What if it could become a platform, a movement, to empower women entrepreneurs, to challenge stereotypes, to rewrite the narrative? The thought ignited a spark within me, brighter and more powerful than anything I'd felt before. For the first time in years, I allowed myself to dream bigger than ever, not just for myself, but for every woman who dared to defy expectations. Little did I know, this dream would set into motion a chain of events that would test my resolve, stretch my limits, and ultimately transform not only my company but the lives of countless others.